Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's dive into a career that's in high demand. Like seriously, everyone's talking about it. Environmental geology.
It really is. And the amount of resources you've sent us on this, it seems like we're about to uncover something really special today.
Yeah, it's like having a whole career counseling session packed into one deep dive.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
So I guess we should start with the most basic question. What is an environmental geologist? It's got to be more than someone who just loves rocks, right?
Definitely more than someone who just loves rocks. Think of an environmental geologist, like a detective for the planet.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so instead of a magnifying glass, what tools are they using?
So they're focused on the impact of mineral operations, especially important when it comes to things like reclaiming land, preventing pollution, making sure we're being
Oh,
responsible.
they're analyzing things like soil erosion, water contamination, making sure that mining sites don't turn into complete ecological disasters.
You got it. And to do that, they're using geological data,
Hmm.
right, to get a clear picture of what's happening beneath the surface.
Okay, so they're using science to protect the planet, which is awesome. I'm already feeling like this is a career with some serious impact. So what are the must-have skills for someone who wants to do this? I mean, I'm guessing a strong understanding of geology and environmental science is a given,
Totally. Those are the foundations. But it's more than just textbook knowledge, right? You've got to be able to apply those principles to real life situations.
which means spending time out in the field, gathering data, analyzing it.
Exactly. Field work is a major part of it, along with data analysis, interpreting all that complex info you're collecting.
So it's a mix of scientific knowledge and these very practical hands-on skills. You're not just stuck in a lab all day, which, don't get me wrong, sometimes sounds kind of nice, but you've also got to be a good communicator, right? I mean, you're dealing with complex issues. You've got to be able to explain that stuff clearly.
Absolutely. You've got to explain those findings to other scientists, but also policymakers, industry leaders, maybe even the public sometimes. And that requires serious communication skills.
Right. You got to make sure everyone's on the same page, especially when it comes to something as important as protecting the environment.
And speaking of being on the same page, it seems like technology is a big part of this too. We keep seeing stuff about things like GIS and remote sensing. What's up with that?
Oh, they're game changers. GIS, geographic information systems, lets them make these really detailed maps. And then remote sensing, that's like getting a bird's eye view of everything using satellites and all that cool tech.
So it's not just about what you know about rocks and soil, but also about how you're using technology to analyze and understand it all. This is a lot more high tech than I think a lot of people realize.
For sure. It's constantly evolving too, which makes it even more exciting. Yeah, so we've talked about what environmental geologists do, but what does the actual career path look like? If someone's listening, they're like, this sounds amazing, sign me up. What's the typical trajectory?
Well, thankfully, you sent over those career stage outlines, which are super helpful.
Yeah, it's like having a roadmap, right?
Totally. So let's imagine someone's just starting out, fresh out of school. Maybe it's their first real job as an environmental geologist. What do you think they're doing?
Hmm. Based on what we've said so far, I'd picture them spending a lot of time in the field. Maybe they're at a potential mining site, collecting soil samples, analyzing water quality.
Definitely. Lots of hands-on work early on, assisting those more senior geologists, learning the ropes.
It's like an apprenticeship almost.
Yeah, exactly. You're building up your experience, your practical skills, and then as you progress, maybe you move into a more senior role. You're leading projects, providing expertise.
Okay, so how does someone get from point A to point B? From like collecting samples to calling the shots on a big project.
That's where things like advanced degrees come in, a master's, maybe even a PhD if you really want to specialize.
Makes sense. It's about deepening that expertise. And what about certifications? I know you mentioned becoming a professional geologist, things like that.
Those are super important. They show that you're really serious, that you meet certain standards.
It's like a stamp of approval, right? You're
Yeah.
not just like saying you know your stuff. You've got the credentials to back it up.
Exactly. So you're building your knowledge, you're gaining experience, maybe working towards those certifications. And as you move up, you're taking on more responsibility, maybe even developing entire environmental management systems.
Wow. So you're not just thinking about one site at a time anymore. You're thinking big picture, long term.
Exactly. It's about managing risks, finding sustainable solutions. It's a lot of responsibility, but also incredibly rewarding.
It sounds like it. Okay, so we've got someone who's passionate about the environment. They're scientifically minded. They're good at communicating their ideas. But how do they actually land their dream job? Because the job market can be seriously intimidating no matter what field you're in.
You're telling me. Which is why I was so interested when you mentioned RoleCatcher. It seems like it's designed to give people a real edge.
Totally.
Yeah.
Especially now that AI is becoming such a big part of the hiring process, it's like you need a way to cut through the noise.
Right, and from what I understand, RoleCatcher does that in a few really cool ways.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, for starters, they've got this AI-powered resume analysis tool that's tailored to specific careers, including environmental science.
Okay, so it's not just some generic thing.
Yeah.
It actually understands what environmental employers are looking for.
Yep. Their AI can analyze job descriptions, identify the keywords that really matter, and suggest improvements to your resume.
So it's like having a secret weapon to help you get noticed, especially with those applicant tracking systems everyone's using these days. I mean, it's one thing to have a great resume, but it needs to actually be seen by a human, right?
Exactly. This helps you get past those initial filters and into the hands of a real person. And the interview is where you can really shine, but that can also be the most nerve-wracking part for people.
Totally. Everyone gets nervous in interviews.
For sure. But guess what? RoleCatcher has something for that too.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What is it?
They have this huge GE database of interview questions, like over 120,000.
No way. 120,000 questions. Who has time for that?
Well, obviously you're not going to memorize all of them, but they have specific ones for environmental science roles. It's about being prepared, right? Getting used to the types of questions they might ask you and practicing how you'd answer.
So you can walk into that interview feeling a lot more confident, even if you're a little nervous, because you've already thought through those tough questions. This role catcher thing sounds seriously impressive. It's like having a career coach, a resume writer, and an interview prep expert all rolled into one.
And it's all powered by AI, which is blowing my mind a little bit, to be honest. But thinking about the future and what we've talked about today with environmental geology, where do you see this career going? Because it seems like with climate change and everything, the demand for these skills is only going to grow, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It seems like it's becoming even more important than ever to have people who understand these complex environmental issues and can find solutions.
Exactly. Think about it. We're going to need environmental geologists to help us deal with things like rising sea levels, all these intense storms we're having.
Finding ways to protect communities, making sure our infrastructure can handle all of these changes.
It's like they're becoming the guardians of our planet, making sure we can all keep living on it.
And that we can keep living on it sustainably, which is a huge part of what this all comes down to.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a career with, real purpose. You're using your skills to make a positive impact.
If someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, this is speaking to me, I need to learn more, what should they do? Where do they go from here?
Well, first of all, thank you for sending me all those resources.
Yeah.
I've actually learned a lot preparing for this.
Me too. I feel like I'm way more informed now than I was an hour ago. But yeah, those resources are a goldmine. Seriously, go check them out if you're interested in environmental geology. There's so much good info in there about everything we talked about today.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to dive in and do some research. It's a fascinating field. Even if you don't end up pursuing it as a career, it's good to know what's going on with our planet.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one discovering the next big solution to one of our many environmental challenges. But that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this awesome deep dive into the world of environmental geology. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.